anyone who knows me personally can tell you that I have been critical of Dragon Ball Super since really its inception. I was critical throughout the entire run of the series, and I really started to become known as one of those people that was overly critical, I say that in air quotes, about the series really around the second arc of the show during the Resurrection F arc, or the retelling in the anime, when I realized I just didn't think it was well put together, but I continued to hold out hope for a while, until I ended up dropping it at the end of the Future Trunks arc, when I realized that if Toei doesn't care, and if Toriyama doesn't care, I'm not gonna waste my time pretending I care. I would still tune in from time to time, because I was a pretty big fan of the show as a kid. It was my favorite show for many years, and I really liked it, and it was what got me into anime. So I would tune in once in a while, up until the end of the show. However, around the end of the Universal Survival arc, I had just started this channel, and I had decided I wanted to review the entire thing, and really make a comprehensive video going over why I thought the show was one of the worst mainstream shonen in over a decade, and I still stand by that statement. Then Dragon Ball Super Broly came out.
Gogeta. Now it's our turn!
I was critical of it before it even came out. I do not like Broly, I did not want to see more of Broly, and I would still have preferred for it to be something new. I think a big problem with this franchise is the repeating of old things. We bring back Frieza, we bring back Broly, we bring back Future Trunks. It's just something this franchise does a lot instead of investing in new, interesting ideas. Or we do another tournament arc. Everything is a repeat of some old concepts from the original manga. Now, having said that, you can go and you can look at my review of Dragon Ball Super Broly. It was a live review right when I got back from seeing the movie. It was, compared to everything else I had to say about the show, a very positive review. However, it's been well over a year since I saw that movie, and I had not watched it since I saw it in theaters. And I think now is a good time to sit back and rewatch it and give my thoughts on it again. Starting off right off the bat, Dragon Ball Super Broly is the best looking Dragon Ball movie ever. I was never a big fan of Yamamuro's character design, and Shintani came in and rehauled all of them, making this series look probably the best it's looked in its entire history. With the exception of some really, really ugly and rough looking CGI later in the movie that Dragon Ball movies seem to be obsessed with using, even though everybody mostly agrees they all look like crap. The entire movie looks fantastic. I really don't plan to talk about the animation at all, because I really have nothing to say about the animation. The Japanese version, voice acting wise, is perfect. I have no problem with any of the performances put forward by the Japanese cast. And while I'm not a major fan of the Funimation English dub, I do think everybody brings forth a solid performance. And while I wish it was, it's simply not possible to talk about this movie without briefly touching on Vic Mignogna. Vic Mignogna, I do not want to get into it, but he has been involved in much controversy, some of which involve sexual assault accusations. However, I'm not going to let that affect my opinion of this movie, especially because nowadays I really prefer this series in Japanese. Now, I think it's a good time to jump into the actual movie. And I'm going to be honest, I'm just gonna say this right off the bat. The first, 15 minutes of this movie are completely worthless and a waste of time. I don't want to get super into why Dragon Ball Minus as a whole is a bad concept, why the original manga chapter is bad, and this isn't that great either, even though it does expand on it a little, and a lot of the stuff that you're seeing here is cool. None of this content is inherently badly made. Yes, I don't like Dragon Ball Minus, but it always looks good, the acting is good, the sound design is good. No, the issue I run into with this sequence with Frieza and Bardock is mainly that all of this feels like it has absolutely nothing to do with the movie. Especially the thing with Bardock and Gine. They never come up again. Goku had no interest in his parents in this movie. It feels to me very much like a Chekhov's gun that is never used. Goku's parents don't even tie into Broly's storyline at all. They don't tie into anything. They show up, show an animated version of the manga chapter that everybody basically agrees is pretty bad, and then they disappear and they have no relevance further for the story. Even the stuff with Frieza only really reveals that King Cold was in charge of the Saiyan race before his son Frieza, but from a character perspective, Frieza's basically the same character we knew him as in the show, in this flashback, so it doesn't add to Frieza at all. It's just kind of like Frieza shows up and starts acting like himself. It's not like we're getting an insight into Frieza's backstory, we're kind of just seeing him show up and take control of the planet. A lot of the things we learn in this are so one note and offhand that it would have been much better to have gotten this information just in a one-off comment or through a bit of exposition during the movie. We didn't need a 15 to 20 minute flashback sequence to show that the Saiyans got their tech from Frieza. It's not like Saiyans not being very technologically savvy is like a plot point in the movie. I guess you could argue later on that that is the reason that Paragus is unable to escape the planet Vampa. It almost feels like a sequence out of a different movie because the content in it just has nothing to do with anything else. Not that having something to do with the rest of this movie is really possible at all. This movie got a lot of praise when it came out and still does get a lot of praise for its handling of the character of Broly, and I'm going to give a hot take and say I disagree with that. Broly is the best character in this movie, and his backstory and everything involving him is surprisingly well written and well thought out and interesting for a Dragon Ball character. The fact that they basically dive into the fact that his father abused him is really surprising for me, because you don't see stuff like that in Dragon Ball that often, and to me, I feel like that's part of the problem. Much like with the Zamasu arc in Super, people will go and praise characters like this in Dragon Ball for being great when they're really not. If another shonen did this kind of thing, and this was the best part of a shonen movie, a character like Broly, you really probably wouldn't see the same amount of praise, because Dragon Ball, for some reason, in my opinion, is held to a very different, much lower standard. People are so surprised, because really, you're just seeing something good. You're just seeing a good character. The stuff with Broly is good. I like Broly in this movie. I do. He's the best part of it. But really, the stuff with Broly isn't that spectacular or groundbreaking. It's just pretty standard for other shonen series nowadays. However, I don't have entirely negative things to say about this movie, as you'll see throughout the video, but a big thing I want to stress is that this movie does have something interesting involving Broly that I think is pretty different, which is the relationship between him and Chila is flat out really good. Both in the English and Japanese version, the actors have great chemistry, and the writing for that is just good. Even if you want to argue whether or not it's romantic, the actual dynamic and the friendship the character builds throughout the film is really interesting. Some of the best stuff in the movie, in my opinion, and at the time when I was the most engaged, was when she was helping Broly navigate the world, introducing him to things, and even helping him stand up to his father and stealing the remote for his shock collar. The character writing for Broly and Chila in these scenes is phenomenal. They are incredibly engaging characters, and when you put them both together, the dynamic is engaging. It interests you. You want to see her help Broly, because you actually do care about Broly. His backstory is good enough that really what it rides on is this relationship between him and Chila, and how it helps him develop as a character, and it's all great. I have nothing negative to say about any of that part of the film. The entire sequence of them traveling to Earth is my favorite part of the movie. It is the best. It is well handled, it's well voice acted, and while I know I said I didn't want to bring up the animation, I do want to bring up a certain part of the animation, particularly with Broly and Chila in this section, which is the phenomenal character acting in this film. The characters in this movie are so expressive. This movie does probably the best job I've seen of naturally conveying and capturing the wacky faces that Toriyama puts in the manga, the shocked faces, the humor gags. It's all so natural and flows so well. And it's really impressive, because good character acting can take a seemingly normal, mundane scene and make it really engaging, because you're able to really feel and see the expressions of the character change very quickly. Good character acting can entirely sell a scene, and some of the character acting, especially for Chilai in this movie, just entirely sells everything. The peak of this movie is that, and I think where this movie falls, and what stops it from being so good, is that Toriyama and the people writing this and the people in charge were doing so well. They were just writing a story. They had an idea, they had the great character going through an arc, and then they stopped writing a story. When they arrive on Earth, this movie loses everything I liked about it, which was the substance, the arcs, the character interaction. It was so good, it felt like such a personal story about Broly. From the moment we start with Broly, and they're meeting up with Chilai and her partner, and they're traveling through space, and they're meeting up with Frieza, it all was great. But the moment we switch to the other characters, and arrive on Earth and start seeing Goku and Vegeta and Bulma, that's when the movie starts to fail. First of all, you can't put a character like Broly, who is actually really well written and engaging, and then go to Goku and Vegeta, who are pretty two-dimensional characters. Vegeta has some depth to him, but overall, on a daily basis in this show, he's pretty one-dimensional. Something special needs to happen to really see those dimensions to the character. Goku's fine, but they're both pretty one, if not two-dimensional characters. And that's the problem. When you put him next to all this great character work going on with Broly and these other characters that are really thriving just based on their dialogue, and you go to this really generic Goku and Vegeta interaction. And that's part of the problem. Don't get me wrong, there's some good jokes. This is Dragon Ball. There are some good jokes. Dragon Ball has never not been funny. There are some really good jokes. My favorite joke in the movie is the joke with Bulma, who shows up and gets to make a joke about how he wants to use the Dragon Ball to look younger. However, as I said, she's there for like 5-6 minutes, and it's introduced really to make that joke and move the plot along. She has no agency in this movie, and neither does really anyone. None of the characters, even to a degree Goku and Vegeta, have any real agency in this story. They're kinda just following the plot around and reacting. Frieza, of course, shows up, and he wants to get her the Dragon Ball to make himself look shorter. But by the way, once again, that running parallel joke with Bulma and Frieza, that was a funny joke. But at the very least, Frieza gets screen time and gets to have some sort of role in the battle, which we'll get to the stupid battle, but he still has something. There's a reason for him to be there. Bulma had like no reason to be in this movie. She has no agency, has nothing to do with the plot. She's really just a vehicle to drive the plot along and get them to one part of the plot to another, and also be part of a gag. At the very least, this movie's main female character is Chilai, and she has some sort of relevancy to the actual movie, and does seem to be one of the few characters in this movie with some degree of agency, until the big battle, which, let's talk about the battle. So, I'm just gonna flat out say this is a bad movie, because it's not a movie, it's not a story. As you can tell, I've been praising the movie a lot. I've actually had some pretty good things to say about it with the Broly stuff. But then Broly arrived on Earth, and everything is kind of downhill from there. I remember when I watched the movie, I got hyped during certain parts of this, my first time seeing it, because I saw things were cool, but upon my rewatch of the movie, I realized that this movie is actually one of the most boring things I've ever seen. Sure, it has a lot of hype moments, but that's about it. None of the characters really do anything. There is no substance to this movie once the battle starts. I honestly don't really even know what the plot of this movie is. I don't really know what this movie's about. I guess you could say the movie's about whether or not Broly dies or not, but that's not really interesting. It's like, isn't that what every movie's about? Does our main character die? A movie's big question shouldn't be who will die. That shouldn't be it. That shouldn't be the only question. But this movie had nothing else going on to it. Really, the fighting starts and it's pretty. I'll give them that. I will give them that this movie is pretty. The movie is very pretty. There's pretty lights. There's lots of explosions. there's lots of buff guys screaming. It almost feels to me kind of like the Dragon Ball Z stereotype. Like, Dragon Ball Z just buff guys screaming, people will say, and you would try to argue with it, but then you show them something like this, and the moment the fighting begins, there's no longer a story. Yes, they do a couple of things to try to make it seem like there's something going on. Like they have that one scene when Goku restrains Broly, and Goku is like asking him to stop. Which, by the way, it's incredibly weird. That is not in character. It's like they're trying to make Goku seem a lot nicer, but it's not really something the character would do to be like, Goku's literally trying to de-escalate the situation and end the fight. Which just felt very strange to me. And I understand that it's supposed to be an implication that Broly isn't actually interested in fighting them and he just like lost control. But the problem with that is that if that's the case, they abandoned that right away. Goku basically is like, okay, you don't want to stop? Okay, I'm gonna have fun fighting you now. And he moves right on to just legitimate normal Goku stuff. Now, this is one of the reasons I don't like it. Because there was room here to do something interesting with the character. Maybe have Goku refuse to fight back, or focus on finding a way to stop Broly without fighting him. Because he doesn't want to hurt somebody who is in pain and have lost control of themselves. But no, instead it abandons the concept of Goku trying to avoid fighting the guy who's been abused his entire life by his father. Broly's the victim of child abuse, and as I went over earlier, that makes him interesting. But the movie doesn't really do anything with that, and none of the other characters act on that. Besides, as I said earlier, Chi-Lai, who would be the only person throughout this fight who seems to genuinely realize that there's no reason for this, and that this is all weird and trying to do anything. But Goku and Vegeta just fight Broly. It's a regular fight, and it abandons any interest it had in doing something different. Which, when I watched in the movie, I was really surprised by Goku offering to like calm him down and not fight him, and how he didn't want to do it. I thought they was like building to something interesting, where Goku was going to have to get outside of his element, as I was saying earlier, and try to avoid fighting Broly and win without using his fists, and win with his mind and his heart. But no! No, we just go straight to the fight. And that disappointed me a lot. And then it really just had Goku and Vegeta fighting him. Vegeta really is the first character to fight him, and it's very much Vegeta goes through his Super Saiyan form. Broly gets stronger while they fight. Vegeta's like, oh my god, he gets stronger while we fight. What do I do? He gets beat up. Goku fights him. Same thing. It looks really pretty. Yes, the scene where he goes Super Saiyan Blue and he momentarily appears to go Ultra Instinct and have like a green aura that people think is like a new Super Saiyan form. That was cool. That looked really epic. But there was no point to it though, because there's no point to any of this. They're just kind of punching each other. And that's my other thing. This movie goes on forever. The fight is like most of the movie, and there's no reason. Listen, say what you want about a lot of these battle shonen, but a lot of these anime movies, even like the early crappy One Piece and Naruto and Bleach movies, tried to have something going on, and tried to have some sort of story that built up to a pretty short, really good fight at the end. Typically the last like 15-20 minutes of these movies is a fight, and the rest of the movie is an actual story. But no, in this, it really just... Broly, once he gets to Earth, he just attacks Goku and Vegeta, and then it's just straight up fighting. It's literally just fighting. And yes, there's a lot of cool stuff in it, and I do enjoy seeing Gogeta. I like seeing Gogeta, but then of course, we have the implication that Goku and Vegeta, as Gogeta, we're going to murder Broly, even though the whole movie is making it out like Broly's an abuse victim. Gogeta's just gonna kill him, and Chi-Lai has to save him. And yeah, obviously, it's funny. There are some funny moments. I didn't even plan on talking about this joke, but I just remembered while literally recording this video that the joke in the theater that made me laugh when I saw it the hardest was when Frieza killed Paragus and blamed it on a stray ki blast. The voice acting, particularly in the dub by Chris Ayers, just killed me. That was funny. I remember laughing hysterically. Now, I'm honestly not sure how I feel about the actual scene, because on one hand, the movie paints Broly as an abuse survivor who was abused by his father, and the abusive father is killed in a gag scene, which to me feels a little insensitive, but it's also really, really funny. so I'm not really sure. I guess I'm fine with it. It's not what I would have done, but I don't actually have a problem with it. But a lot of this movie to me just feels like it kind of lacks any sort of narrative. Until around the end of the movie. You see, once Gogeta shows up, the narrative does kind of form into this, I guess, we all agree on good message, which is Gogeta shouldn't kill Broly because Broly's a victim of child abuse. I mean, like, yeah, Gogeta shows up and he looks really rad, and I guess it's really cool while he beats up the victim of child abuse, which I think personally made me feel pretty weird, especially when I rewatched it a second time, and I got over how cool Gogeta is. See, Gogeta is cool. That's the thing. This movie's cool. This movie's awesome. This whole movie is fan service. And it's really cool. But it tries to be something else in the beginning, and then it just was nothing. It is very possible. I think One Piece Stampede is a great example of something else Toei made. One Piece Stampede is a great movie, and it's a very fan-servicey. It brings back all the characters, and it does all this crazy stuff, but it does have a mystery. It has a mystery for some of it, and then it has really engaging set pieces, and even in the really long fight at the end, which I do also agree is very long, at the very least, you get to see a team-up of characters that you never get to see team up in the show. In this, it's really all stuff we've seen before. We've seen Goku and Vegeta team up against somebody way stronger than them, and then decide to feud. And this time, they just did the dance instead of using the earring. But it's totally doable. I mean, as I was saying earlier, One Piece Stampede did it. It is entirely possible to do a movie in a shonen genre and have it have a story, and still have awesome action. This movie seemed like in the beginning it was interested, and then it kind of just fizzled out into nothing. And I think for me, that's why I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of mindless action. I like action, but I like action with a purpose. I like fights that tell a story. I like it when a battle tells a story between two conflicting ideologies or ideas, or tells a message, or a moral, or a theme, or anything. But none of these fights do that. I mean, I guess you could argue the theme is will Broly live, and you shouldn't beat up child abuse survivors, like people that were abused as children that are recovering. You shouldn't beat them up when they lash out. I guess that could be a theme. But, like, there's nothing really here. I don't see, personally, any substance here once the fight starts. And then the fight ends, and then the movie basically ends. Chilai wishes that they can go back to Vampa, where they go. Goku just shows up at this man's house and gives him food on the condition that he fights him. The entire scene plays very much like Goku doing it because he wants something in return, which is fine. Goku's a selfish character. But it just feels really weird. He just shows up, gives them food, says he wants to fight him, and then Goku turns around and tells Broly,
Son Goku! それと Kakarot!
You can call me Kakarot or Kakarato. To which I respond, where the hell did that come from? From a real world perspective, I get that it's a callback to the original movie, and when I first saw it, I thought it was really cool. Then I sat down upon my rewatch and I thought about it, and I'm like, there is no point in this movie where Goku suddenly becomes super interested in, like, accepting his Saiyan heritage. No, he has turned around to Broly and tells him specifically that Broly can call him Kakarot. And once again, the scene is directed and shot and acted in both the Japanese and the English version in a way that implies it's supposed to be like payoff for something, but I'm not sure what is paying off in the context of this movie. I mean, there definitely wasn't anything going on in Super that would lead to that. There was no, Goku had no character arc in Super that would lead to that kind of ending. So it wasn't something they were paying off from Super, and it wasn't something they're playing off from the movie, because Goku has, like, no motivation for anything in this movie besides he wants to punch Broly really hard. The whole movie just feels, once the fight starts, like any inspiration or interesting idea that happened got thrown out of the window in favor of just fan service and cool moments and pandering to fans. Is Broly the best antagonist? I don't want to call him a villain because he's not. Is he the best antagonist in a Dragon Ball movie? Sure, I haven't seen any of the movies in a long time, but I think that's pretty fair to say. But then again, it's also like talking about who the best female character in Dragon Ball is. Like, there's not many good ones. There's like 3. Like a Videl, maybe, a Bulma, I guess. And like a Kale and Khalifa, maybe, but people hate Kale and Khalifa. So it's almost like, what's the point in having the conversation? Yeah, Broly's their best antagonist. I think that's fair, but that's also not a massive achievement. It's not the greatest achievement in the world when you're the best of something, when everything else was pretty bad. Overall, looking back, this movie is fun to watch. It's filled with a lot of great hype moments and it's fun to look at, and the stuff with Broly in that small section is really good. I absolutely do not like Minus, and I think it's a fun movie, but looking back, it's not very good. I think one of the things that it had to its advantage, just like a couple of parts of Super, like the Future Trunks Star did, in that Dragon Ball had such below modern standard storytelling. Like the standard for Dragon Ball is so low that when you do stuff like the Broly thing in this movie, where you have this kind of animation, fans kind of just will want to latch onto it and say it's the best thing ever. It's not. It's just a lot better than everything else they've had in the movies for a long time. I would certainly say Broly is better than Battle of the Gods and Resurrection of F. At least it looks really good, unlike those movies, which had Yamamuro's ugly-ass character design. But yeah, what would I give this movie? I'm not really gonna rate it, because I rate movies based on a lot of things, and this movie doesn't really have enough story or character work for me to rate it. Not enough happens in it. There's only a small section that I would say is actually really good, and isn't just cool. So you know what, I would say, if you're a Dragon Ball fan, enjoy your movie. It's a cool, fun movie with lots of flashy explosions, and look really pretty, and yeah. But the question really is, looking back, is this a good movie? Is it a good story? And I would say no! It's definitely not bad, it's definitely not Dragon Ball Super, but I also would definitely not call it good. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I've worked really hard on this video. I've really wanted to get back into my highly edited videos, and this is the first of a couple of really long ones. I'm actually in the process of catching back up to One Piece, my current running manga right now, and when I do catch up to the manga, I will be doing a video on Wano Kuni and the Wano arc, which will be super exciting. I also have a My Hero Academia video I'm working on Deku's Quirk, One for All, and yeah, it's gonna be awesome. But guys, hope you enjoyed. We are back, and above all else, guys, have a great day.